What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Flow and Flow Out podcast. My name is Sam Nang. I'm your host today for this podcast. So I'm a lifestyle and performance coach. I'm a hybrid athlete and a philosopher. And today I got a special guest today. He's a coach himself. His name is Nick Loudenslager. Is that how you say it?
Got it, man.
Yes, that's what I was practicing before the podcast. I got to make sure. I didn't even check. But he's got a great story, a very transformative story, and he's a friend of mine that we found from the life coaching community that we both share. It's through Tony Robbins mastery or the Robbins Madonna's training life coaching program. So we connected through there, and we share very similar interests and have very similar experiences about self-love and growth and personal development. And I wanted to introduce Nick. Nick, welcome to the show. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me. It's my first podcast.
Yeah.
So I'm excited, man. Podcast today, superstardom tomorrow.
Yeah.
On the map.
I saw your first video and I really liked it. And I gave you a compliment, a sincere compliment. And it's something that I learned from Tony Robbins is, you were very authentic and really real and transparent about this personal struggle that you went through and the whole journey. And you've been continuing on it and very transparent about it too. So the podcast is about authenticity, personal development, and just sharing your journey. And hopefully it inspires other people to share their journey and, talk about it and be more open about it. So yes, welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, likewise. And that's just it, man. It's like the power to connect, like a true connection. It comes from authenticity and vulnerability.
Yeah.
Having the courage to share your deepest insecurities, fears, doubts, and just have it welcome to be received. That's how you're going to form a powerful, genuine connection with people.
Yeah.
So that's how I started. Like I've been doing the coaching for a couple of years now, just learning and applying the techniques of how to do it. And now I'm like jumping into build a business from it, which has come with its own set of challenges and observations going through that process.
Yeah.
But sharing the story, that was something that I had to do because I'm a coach now, today. Never in a million years did I think I'd be doing this. And I think I got into this lifestyle, like the self-development and personal growth, about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And that was only because of about 30 or so years of being the exact opposite of that. Thinking the wrong way, acting the wrong way. Negative thoughts led to negative actions, which in turn led to worse thoughts, which in turn led to worse actions. Now, mine was self-destructive. It wasn't towards anybody else, intentionally anyway. But it was a long list of things that I suffered from personally. And one of the things that I do in my program with my clients is trying to get to the root, like the root cause of why you are the way that you are. So my root was just low self-worth. That's where it started. It's the earliest one that I can remember. But it escalated, depression, anxiety, not feeling like you were good enough. Who could ever like me? Who could ever want me? That's what I thought on the inside. Now on the outside, it was put a mask on the world that I'm happy, fun loving, things are great. And that was part of me too. So why I thought like that poorly of myself, it's like you would think like I had a very traumatic childhood. I didn't. You'd think I didn't have a fulfilling social life. I definitely did. Like I had all the things going for me on the outside, friends, family, connection, livelihood. And I liked Motown. And the song that always spoke to me the most was Smokey Robinson's Tears of a Clown. Because on the outside, I was this fun, happy, go-getting guy. And the inside, I was just this sad, depressed clown. And there was no reason behind why I felt that way. Or there were reasons that I uncovered later on in life.
Yeah. So at that time, you just didn't know what it was that was creating the sadness or the internal struggle, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So then that escalated with the low self-worth. And then it got into, substance abuse with drugs and alcohol. And it wasn't a numbing technique in the beginning because, quite honestly, it was a lot of fun in the beginning. But when you live that lifestyle for as long as I did, there comes a point in time where it's not fun anymore, but
Yeah.
you're still doing it. And it was a numbing technique. Like drugs and alcohol weren't the problem. That was my tool. It was to get out of my own head. That's how I escaped it. And
Hmm.
we all do it. I mean, my main tool is drugs and alcohol, but we do it with our phones and social media, Netflix, food, whatever the case may be, whatever can just shut our mind off of thinking about the things that we're supposed to do but don't want to do and just
Yeah.
numb out. We're all guilty of it. And then from there, it was, I've been living this lifestyle for a long time. And I remember back then thinking, like, I want to change. I need to change, but I didn't
Yeah.
know how. I didn't have everybody I could turn to. I always thought like nobody could understand my problems. I didn't want to burden anybody with what I was feeling. I tried like the therapy route, which was ineffective for me. I think that's so contingent on having the right therapist,
Yeah.
but that's such a crapshoot in itself. It's like I call my insurance. Here's a list of providers. All right, out of these 50 names, 48 of these guys have 38 consonants and no vowels in their names. So it's like you just pick one out of a hat and hope it works.
Yeah.
And I just didn't get a good experience from it. I was talking about my problems, but I wasn't solving any of them.
Yeah.
And then at the time, I remember thinking like, I just need a girlfriend. A girlfriend will
Solving problems.
fix me. Like somebody else could fix me and help me. That's what I thought at the time. And you know
I mean,
what?
a lot of people kind of think that way. That's where you come in that codependency, like relying on a person for your
Oh,
happiness. You
absolutely,
know?
man. It's like so many people look for somebody else
Yeah.
to make them whole. My other half, you complete me, all of
Mm.
that shit. And it's
All that
cute,
Christian shit.
but what if you were to just be whole on your own? Fill
Yeah.
your own cup. When you do that, that's the pathway to like self-love and self-worth and then knowing your own value. When you build that up on your own without having to be dependent on anybody else,
Yeah.
then someone's going to come along that's going to overflow your cup. And it's
Yeah.
going to be a magical experience when you're in it. But going back, like the universe gave me exactly what I asked for at the time. A girlfriend will fix me, but it gave me the vibrational match of who I was at the time. And I
Yeah.
attracted this toxic relationship. And I have to be very careful what I say and how I say it because this person I'm still attached to. And at the time, there was a lot of serious, significant, like untreated mental health problems
Hmm.
combined with narcissistic personality traits, combined with other things going on. And you know what, though? That relationship, that was a match for who I was at the time. And so the universe gave me what I asked for, but it just paired me with that. And I stayed in that relationship for far too long. And I have to have some accountability on it because I wasn't happy in it. I could have gotten out at any time. However, I hadn't learned the things that I had learned yet. And I felt powerless. And I stayed in it for the wrong reasons. Every time I tried to leave, something happened where it pulled me back in. And it just repeated itself year over year over year. And my mental state got so bad during that time where I was like, I've been in a position where like the best part of my day was going to sleep. And the
Yeah.
worst part of my day was waking up just to start this nightmare all over again.
It's tough.
And I kind of shut myself down from the world, like lost a lot of close friends in the process, and just became a prisoner of my own mind and circumstance. And the reality is, I had the key to escape anytime I wanted to. I just didn't have the power to do it yet.
Yeah.
And then, like, my mental state got so bad, it started impacting my physical body. My physical body started breaking down
Yeah.
with complications with back problems. I ended up getting a random shoulder condition, which led to 3 surgeries in 4 years, the last one being a replacement. And yada, yada, yada. It all came crashing down. I finally broke free and I ended it. And even just going through that whole split process was significant. And I was a new parent at this time. And we made the decision. I was living in Florida for almost 20 years and loved it down there.
Yeah.
And decided to move back to Buffalo. Never in a fucking million years did I think I'd be back in Buffalo, New York. But here I am. I mean, I did it for the opportunity to give my son the opportunity to grow up around his family. Now, I was fortunate enough to grow up with a good family and good upbringing and a big extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, all that stuff. And that's an experience, in my opinion, you have to show and not tell. Like, I didn't want grandma and grandpa to be people he saw twice a year, and not to mention everything else that comes along with it. So made the decision to come back here, but it was also resetting life. I was basically independent at 17 years old, a homeowner, all that stuff. And then I had to cash all that in and move back home initially to live with mom and dad in my mid 30s.
Yeah.
So they say it takes a breakdown to have a breakthrough. And that was my case. I wasn't any different. When I got here, it's like I was broken physically. I was broken mentally. And it was right then and there. I made a choice and I said to myself, never again. Never will I allow myself to be this way, to act this way. Like, I'm a parent now. I can't raise a child being this fucking version of who I was. Like, I can't set that as an example. So I needed to change. And I could have very easily put all the blame on that relationship and it would have been well warranted. But I had to have some self-awareness, accountability, and be like, no, you were a fucking mess before you even met her. So that wasn't the cause. That was like the final nail in your coffin. And that was just it. I started committing to change. I didn't know what I was doing. I just closed my eyes and blindly started working forward. And I did that by just consuming, just absorbing as much information that I could in that space, just studying and learning from every big thought leader and name in the industry. And about 2 years went by and I had some improvements. I was healing some, but I hadn't had that major breakthrough yet. And I ended up doing something on my own, nothing that I read from a guru or learned somewhere. I had realized I had made the mistake of being comfortable. Now, I've been back in Buffalo for 2 years, and here I am 2 years later living with my parents still, my roommates, if you will.
Yeah.
And I was like, I should have had some sense of urgency, but also I had to give myself some grace, and I needed that time to heal. It wasn't just one relationship, it was 30-something years
Yeah.
of feeling this way.
That's where the personal development and transformative work is. It's like it's building up, building up, building up, and then all these memories, all these patterns and thoughts and behaviors that you've gone through life and everything builds inside your system and everything, and learning how to process it is that pain that you're feeling on the inside. A lot of people feel it too, but like you said, with like the alcohol and abuse and the fun and those activities, it hides it. But then when you start to face it, yeah, it's tough. That's one of the biggest struggles is when you face it.
Absolutely. And it's like what you hit on is the thought, like started to understand the power of the human mind. It's like
Yeah.
what you focus on, you feel. And you can, look at a scenario of an opportunity and focus on all the things that can go wrong or all the things that you can go right. It's like you fester those thoughts.
Yeah.
It's
And like people that listen, like when I started doing personal development, same as you, when you start to develop your own thoughts, your own behaviors and patterns outside of what's been conditioned and stuff, you start to see other people on like, hey, why are they doing stuff that they might not even be completely thinking about it. It's just a pattern that they've seen from other people and other behaviors and stuff. And when you do that personal development work, it's kind of going against the grain a little bit, but taking more accountability for yourself, which is indeed it's good for everyone.
Oh, sure, man. Especially with it's careful of comparing yourself to other people
Yeah.
because that can make you feel like shit real quick.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we all
Especially,
done it, right?
oh,
It's
of
like
course, man. Especially what people present on social media, like there's jealousy or envy. You may even start to judge another person or, snicker behind their back. But the reality is anybody that judges anybody, it's you're projecting something that you don't like about
yeah.
yourself.
There is one point that I do really like that you said about like your relationship. You naturally only attract what vibration that you're vibrating at, right? Your frequencies or whatever your vibrations and stuff, because that is your limitations. You're gonna only be able to see past what you can see. So once you start doing personal development, shadow work, or we call it shadow work or therapy
Oh
or
yeah.
any of that kind of stuff, you start to see the things that you can't see, and you're starting to notice that more, and that actually builds a more of a authentic person, right? And because in the beginning you're struggling, like you develop a person that wants to be cool or say the things that will make other people think that you're cool, but in reality is like, are you saying the things that are actually true to you? And
Right.
it's a struggle inside until you figure it out, right?
It's almost like wearing a mask, and we're all guilty of it. It's like the
Yeah,
mask that we present to the outside world. Like, how are you? I'm good. I'm happy. But on
yeah,
the inside, it's like, oh, I am so not happy. I am so insecure. We present this out and we become
yeah,
this version. It's us. The mask is still us, but underneath that mask, our vulnerabilities, our insecurities, we don't let those come to the surface.
yeah. I mean, the idea of like happiness, I always kind of like went back and forth with it, and it's sometimes it's like in personal development, it's like it's not always about happiness. It's about fulfillment. And when you do personal development work
Right.
and when you grow, when you become an entrepreneur or step outside a little bit, right? There's a ton of growth that occurs in this, like area of life where it's uncomfortable, extremely uncomfortable. When you have to face your demons, your dark side, your shadow, and bring that to light and start to integrate it, you feel different from a lot of people, right? I'm sure that's something that
Oh,
you start to struggle with as well too,
yeah,
because
absolutely. So it's like,
everybody thinks that you're supposed to be Nick, and then you start to change. You're like, you're different, Nick. What's happening?
right. But
Yeah,
it's like touch on two things I want to what you said about happiness and then about getting uncomfortable. But happiness, it's like that should be the goal for all day, every day. And I was somebody that I put happiness on a pedestal.
yeah,
I was constantly chasing it. Like, I'll be happy when I do this. I'll be happy when I get that. And it was always like a hunt for it. And then the time came where I achieved that goal or got that thing. Like, yeah, I had some temporary joy in the moment, but by the time I got there, I was already fixated on something else. Well, now that I have this, I'll really be happy when I do this or get that. And it was a
yeah,
chase. It was a fucking chase for decades of my life.
yeah,
And when I learned to reframe it and just learn to just be happy, and happy is a feeling. You can say you're happy and be full of shit, but when
it's
you're
the balance.
genuinely happy and like in the flow, it's a feeling. You can feel it. And then what you say is like attracts like, it's energy, vibrations, emotions, all that stuff. But you're
Mhm.
in authentic happiness and you can do it. There's a ways to do it with nothing more than the power of your own mind. Just
Yeah,
through like visualization, meditation, there's a variety of different spiritual practices that can be incorporated into it. But when you achieve it in the present with nothing at all, you don't got to chase it anymore. All that stuff starts coming to you because people notice it in you. Like attitude and energy are contagious,
yeah.
positive or negative. It's going to snowball one way or the other. It's when I say like attitude, positive or negative mindset.
It
When I
does
say
change. Yeah,
energy, I'm talking about like your physiology, your body language. Like you
yeah,
could say you're happy, but if you're walking around with your shoulders down, not making eye contact with people, like your body language says something different.
Yeah.
Like, you ever like, I'll give you like the office scenario. Like, we've all been like walking to a doctor's office or someplace, and there's a greeter at the front desk. And before you even say a word, you can look at their energy, and they
Yeah.
can have a smile on their face and welcome and inviting, or they can just have that nasty resting bitch face. And when you have that negative energy, like, you kind of absorb it. It's like
You
when
do.
you
Yeah.
see that in somebody, how often is it where they have the attitude to match that energy? And then when you have that exchange, when you walk away from it, you're kind of in a shitty mood. Like,
Yeah.
and conversely, just greet someone with a smile. How do you do? It lets your guard down. You open up and you feel better. Like, it's
Yeah.
contagious.
This is an interesting topic, I think, for especially for men, talking about like emotions and like feelings and like energies and stuff. I think it's fairly more, since we're discussing it and stuff. And like energy is important for sure. And how you describe like when you go into and are greeted by somebody like at a restaurant or at a hospital, that energy does carry, especially also too as like parents and stuff. When you're a parent and you have kids and stuff, your energy, you are the person that is actually emitting it, since you're the biggest source of energy.
Oh, sure.
And yeah, and like higher vibrational energy, I think it's more effective in communicating and connecting and being authentic. But there are times where emotions and vibrations can be low as well too. How do you as a coach like help other people, like if they're not feeling so, of course they want to be like happy, they want to be fulfilled and on their personal development journey. If they're struggling with some emotions and stuff, how do you
Right.
work with people, in your case, how do you help them and guide through them, that kind of scenario?
A big cornerstone part of like the beginning part of my program is kind of a foundational thing, kind of like upgrading your programming or code. And a big cornerstone is centered around emotions. I mean, I'm 42 years old.
Yeah.
So I was raised by a generation where men were men. Like,
Yeah.
it's not
Talk about that.
manly to talk about
Yeah.
your feelings, to talk about your emotions. You repress that shit like an adult, like a man. And
Yeah.
it's not their fault. That's how they were raised from the generation before them, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And I think so many of us today are fucked up because we didn't learn the proper way to express emotions.
Hmm.
And it's there's so much to it, but I always reference an emotional frequency chart. You can just Google emotional frequency scale. I like the one by David Hawkins. That's the one that speaks to me the most, but they're all
Yeah.
pretty similar.
I talk about something similar to that. It's
Yeah.
the vibrational chart. It's probably the same. I use it. Dr. Joe Dispenza uses where it's like feeling of like lust, greed, like low vibrational, and I talk about
Right. Yeah.
higher vibrational.
It's centered around emotion.
Yeah.
And it's like what you focus on is what you feel. And Tony Robbins says this, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your emotions.
Hmm.
So
It's
I mean,
managing your
just
emotional state. Yeah.
right, just the word itself, emotion, comes from the base energy and motion. So when you look at that frequency scale, the simplest way I can describe it to people is look at it as if it were a magnet. Whatever your primary emotional states are, is what you'll continue to attract into your world. And all the negative, lower vibration ones are heavier emotions, like things like fear, guilt, shame, anger, envy.
Hmm.
And have you ever noticed when you're in a shitty mood, like everything feels heavy?
That's what you focus on too.
Right. You focus, like everything feels heavy, everything hurts, you're tired for no reason.
Yep.
And it's an emotion so powerful that it creates a chemical reaction within your brain, releasing certain hormones and chemicals, which will in turn impact your mood, will in turn impact your physiology. It's all connected, attitude, energy, it's all linked to emotion. And there's two causes of emotion. There's only two. And I like to segue this into, I'll ask you the question. Are emotions a choice? What do you think?
Yeah. It's a choice. I think sometimes it's a feeling. It's sometimes whatever you perceive,
Right.
right, is totally up to you. It could be a rainy day. But you can also see as a rainy day, oh, it's a good opportunity to relax and kind of take my mind off of something. Or you could say, oh, it's a rainy day. There's no sun. There's no, things happening, right? You could train your mind and body to focus on something specifically, right? But it's the work of the person to perceive it and to change it, which is, for me, it's counterintuitive because the brain and the conditioning of everybody is trained to see negative stuff. Like for me, it's like when
Right.
you see the news, it's negative, mostly negative.
Yeah, we're surrounded by it. I mean, look at just the political climate we're in right
Yeah,
now. I know we're recording before the election, but it's going to air after the
right.
fact. But like,
And then what it is, I mean, how do you sell headlines, or how do you sell views? It's like a negative headline, like P. Diddy and stuff. Like his news pops up because it's negative.
right,
People like negative stuff. They like seeing other people
right.
kind of stuck, and then it makes them feel a little bit better. I mean, sometimes we are naturally attracted to that, but you have to actually like condition and train your body and mind to say, okay, let's
Oh, absolutely. It's a learned skill. So when you said yes, emotions are a choice, you're right. But at the same time, if you said yes or no, both sides would be right. And let me
yes,
explain. So there's two causes to emotion. One is experience, your experience that you have in your everyday life. Give you an example. Like you're driving on the highway, somebody cuts you off, you get road rage. You're
yeah,
you're swearing, you're cursing, you're tensing up, and you have the emotion before your brain has a chance to process the thought. In that circumstance, based off an experience, the emotion is not a choice.
hmm,
But now what do? Somebody's cut you off, you had your snap moment, you can release it, or you can carry it with you the rest of your day. And if you carry around that fucking anger, you're angry at that driver. But now
yeah,
you are more likely to direct that anger onto somebody else. So in the situation of an experience, emotions are not a choice. But the biggest cause are the ones that sit with us throughout our entire days and lives. The other cause of emotion is a thought. And we have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of thoughts that go through our brains on a daily basis.
yeah,
Like I'll give you an example. You can just be minding your own business, just zoned out, and then all of a sudden, hey, remember that time 8 years ago where I was a fucking dick?
yeah,
Yeah, I do remember that. I feel guilty and ashamed, and you can fuel that thought and sit in it. Right?
yeah,
Hey, remember that time 18 years ago where so and so hurt me, so and so wronged me? Yeah, I do remember that. I'm fucking still angry about it. People hold on to grudges for fucking decades, and
hmm,
it's so much work to do that.
yeah,
But it's like I say this, the first thought that pops in your head out of your control. Every single thought that follows is entirely up to you.
right. I think that's a great point. Yeah, the thought
You
that
are
pops up, like it does pop up. Like things randomly will pop up. Like if you see something like getting triggered or something,
right.
and then that feeling will pop up. Sometimes, and I think I studied like trauma and like how healing works and is in the body. Like that memory is stored in your body, right? Right. If you see, like for me, sometimes I'm divorced and stuff. Sometimes I see other parents, families and stuff, together and
Right.
stuff, and it makes me sad. It makes me, because I'm divorced and everything too. But then I have to change that perception of like, okay, it is what it is and stuff. It's sadness, right? But
Right.
in this opportunity, how do I change my emotional state? Even though I still have to process
Right.
it, people still have to process, like,
Oh,
you might still feel like an asshole, you know?
right. Well, that's why it's so fucking important to heal, truly heal all of those wounds.
Yeah.
Because life happens to all of us. Like somebody hurt us, somebody beat us, somebody wronged us. And we're like, well, that sucked. Let's never let that happen again. Let me put this wall up to protect me, to keep me safe from making that same mistake. And you learn, you move on, you kind of heal. But unless you truly heal that wall and tear it down, that wall stays up
Yeah.
forever. And then that's just one instance. Something else happens. Someone else hurts you. You put up another wall, and then another wall, and then another wall. And over a long enough timeline, next thing you know, you become a prisoner of these own walls that you've put up. Not
Yeah.
only can you not escape them, it's also preventing other things from getting into you because you have your guard up. And most of the time, it's the things that we want to receive. So for anybody that's still holding on to grudges or still guarded and still have those wounds that you've moved on from but are not truly healed, it's a 4-step process on how to do it.
Yeah.
Step 1 is just acceptance. It fucking happened. You can't change it. Accept that it happened. That part's the easiest one. Part 2 is learning the lesson slash shifting your perception. Like, what lessons did you learn because of that experience? What lessons should you have learned because of that experience? And then with shifting the perception, it's when shitty things happen to us, so often we look at it with blinders on. We only focus on the
Yeah.
negative. And yeah, it was fucking negative experience. That's why you have a wall up around it. But take those blinders off. Like, who did you become? Who were you forced to become because of that? What did you learn? How did you grow? Are you stronger today from that unpleasant experience?
Mm-hmm.
Find a way to put a positive spin on it. Step 3 is forgiveness, first to yourself, and then secondly to the other person. And this is a fucking hard part, especially when those people don't deserve forgiveness.
Yeah.
But it's, you got to think of it, you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for you. And I'll give you an example of that relationship that I was telling you about. Like, I should have every reason in the world to hate this individual. I don't. I choose not to. I don't want to hold that grudge. I went through these 4 steps. And the last one, just go on a rant here. The last one is just release and let go. We got to go to the first 3. But this individual, I went through all the steps and I forgave, even when there's no business to do it. But I did that for me because when I think about it, it's going to piss me off. It's going to put me in a shitty mood. And now I'm giving this person power over me that they don't even know they have.
Yeah,
You
it's
look
that,
at
that
this,
that quote I really like. It's like you're drinking poison. It's like your
right,
own poison, hoping that it kills or hurts them. When in
right,
actuality, it's actually hurting yourself. That grudge that you're holding.
right.
Like when we talk about like healing, when it comes to relationship, parents, or whoever that we're trying to make ourselves better, is we hold a grudge on that person, and that limits us from our own personal growth. Which is, a great point. I think when you start healing, is that you actually have to start forgiving you, yourself, and the people that you put yourself in the situation with
Oh
too.
yeah, and forgiving
Yeah,
the other people is hard. Forgiving
sorry.
yourself is hard depending on what it is. But you just have to know, like, hopefully you've learned your lesson and you're going to think differently, but more importantly, act differently from learning that lesson. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and
Like
that's
that
the work.
person.
And that's the work you do have to get. And you do have to get the insight and do the inner work. Whether it be meditation or working with like a coach or anything to get different insights to get around it and stuff. But the difference is that the insight has to change. If you still have the same thought patterns and everything, people won't see any progress, and it could be done in many different ways to get different insight.
Oh, sure. Like even that
Yeah,
individual in my life, when I heal, like release, forgive, and let go, I've done it for that instance, and something comes back, I have to do it all over again. I'm constantly being tested by it.
yeah.
But if I don't, then it fucks up my day. Now I'm pissed. I'm pissed. It starts being pissed off at that person. Now I'm just pissed off in general. And
It
now
changes
I'm
your
like,
body too. It changes your mood. Like
yeah,
that.
now I'm
That's the real
pissed off.
thing. It's like when we talk about personal development, you actually have to consciously accept that. Like I am pissed, but how do you stop that and change it? And it's
Right.
managing the emotional
So
state.
it's learning to master your emotions. I'm not saying like your life happens to all of us. Nobody's gonna be immune from experiencing the lower emotions of anger and whatever else.
Yeah,
It's but it is a choice of how long you choose to stay in that state. And if you tell yourself differently, you're just telling yourself a lie. So and so wrong that I can never forgive them. I forgive, but I don't forget. Well, heal it. Heal the fucking wound because if you don't, anytime that you think about it, it's going to bring a negative emotion to your present.
yeah,
And how you know you've truly healed it, when you think back upon it, the emotion's just neutral. It
yeah.
doesn't impact you one way or the other. That's how you know for sure if it's healed.
Yeah, I think the goal is neutrality. Sometimes where like there's this thought like because I coach people is like like whether it be like a bad relationship or something that's like traumatizing or that takes them to like a place where their self-worth is very low is like to forgive the other person, but it's like maybe it was like 6 or 8 years ago is like, unfortunately, you can't go back and go talk to that person and like remedy anything. The only thing that you could do is go inward and say, hey, I need to heal myself. Healing is
Right.
forgiveness. And I think that's such a powerful thing, vulnerable, being forgiving of one, yourself, right? Because we all, like, as like life coaches and be like, we give people tools. We don't aren't built with tools to actually handle a lot of these things. And that's,
Right.
when I coach and get feedback and stuff, is like, we aren't built with these tools. We just kind of learn through it, through other people, through experiences and sharing it and stuff. And the personal development journey is one, it's a little scary in the beginning because you kind of step out your comfort zone, start to do something a little bit. There's something that I like that you talk about, and I want to talk about it as well too, because personal development, doing like a transformation, it's scary, right? Because you got to give up a lot of things. You got to give up some of your old identities and beliefs about yourself. Can you tell a little bit about the fearless and the intentional accidents? And you shared a little bit about your experience and
Yeah.
how
So
going through this
like
is, yeah.
this is, I don't know if you can see it, but this is the wallpaper on my phone. And it
Mhm.
just says everything that you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. And so we get comfortable. Even when life isn't going the way that we want it to, we still normalize it and are comfortable with it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's people that work 40 years in jobs they fucking hate. Every Sunday night, they're getting the anxiety and the Sunday scaries, going through a week and something that brings them down emotionally to live for the weekends, to take a vacation every 2, 3 weeks out of the year. Fucking why? I'll be happy when I retire. Like, but that's normal to them.
Hmm.
It's too scary, it's too uncomfortable to look for something else, to look behind it. And for anybody out there that's experiencing this, don't feel bad. You're far from alone. So many people do it. But if you were to comfort, comfort's the killer of growth. If you want to
Yeah.
grow, if you want the life that you always dream of having, it's doesn't happen being comfortable. You
Yeah.
have to go outside of your comfort zone.
Fear is a
It,
good indicator for things. And I talk about it a lot because
yeah,
without fear, you don't have courage, right?
right.
Courage in itself is doing things that you haven't done before, and you start to express yourself about the things that you do. And fear is a good indicator and of growth. I think people need to make friends with fear, right? And that's where personal development come in, because we're always facing our fear. What we're healing, what we're focusing on, is what we're overcoming, and then that over time develops a value system of
Right.
courage. I love when people develop enough courage to speak and be authentic and say, what's on their mind. And I understand, like, the regular 9 to 5, living for something that maybe hasn't been really their dream, but it might just be somebody else's dream or a norm because everybody else is doing
Right.
it and stuff. So,
Well, they
and stepping
normalize
outside
it.
of that is scary.
Yeah, they normalize it. They're comfortable. Then they tell themselves, "Oh, I have to do this for security to support my family." Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we all need those things,
We all need security. We all
but
need
you, of
security.
course, it's one of the
Yep.
6 core needs.
Yeah.
We all need it, but you could achieve that in a different way.
Yeah.
What if you just took an uncomfortable leap and found a job that were, same hours, but fulfills you, makes you
Well,
fucking happy.
or
And I
even things outside of the regular job that contributes to your fulfillment. And I do want to bring this back to like happiness and fulfillment. For me, it's like, yes, happiness is good, but fulfillment, I believe, as Tony Robbins teaches, that's more longer lasting. And sometimes in the process of searching for fulfillment, you're not always happy. I think for me, it's like I'm not
right,
always happy where I'm at, but I know in the process of like when I do self reflection, introspective work,
right.
that where I'm going to be is going to make me very fulfilled in life. And I think fulfillment, uh, when you overcome fears, consistently and be able to predict
Oh,
it and have the tools and the necessary and the patterns and everything to do it, you become very powerful in a way. I think that's what personal development is. Mm.
yeah. So, I mean, I'll get back to, there's a long
Yeah.
tangent there, but what you asked about my intentional accident. And I'll just kind of set the stage because I didn't know what the results were going to be for doing what I did. It was just I needed to shake things up. So it started. I had I had done worked as a comedian for many years, and at this moment in time, it had been about 7 years since I had done stand up. And the last time I did was I was going through a breakup, and it
Yeah.
wasn't just any breakup. It was like who I thought at the time was like the one. So I was like
Yeah.
devastated over it. And I was so thick in it. And I was on stage going through my thing, and I was like 2 minutes into my set, and I just went blank. I forgot everything I was gonna say, and then instead of like powering through it, I just dropped the mic and walked off stage. And
Yeah.
then I always thought I'd go back to it, but then the wheels really started coming off for me after that, where it was just one thing after another, and it just never matriculated. And for 7 fucking years, I thought about it daily. For whatever reason, I never did it. And it got to the point where it's just like, I just need to prove if I'm still funny. I needed to know that for myself. It was nothing more. It was nothing that inspired to get back
Blame
into
you,
it.
I think it's just sometimes like, for me, like when I started doing self development, it's like I always knew I was an artist, but then I lost that artist. Like you
Right.
lost, that feel because you don't feel fun or you don't feel like an artist, creative and stuff. But yes, continue. Sorry.
So it was randomly, it was Easter Sunday, and I had a little too much wine and got drunk on Easter, and I just said, fuck it. And I signed myself up for Buffalo's Funniest Comedian Contest, which is like the comedy equivalent of like being skinniest in line at a Cinnabon. But
Whatever.
but
We don't need to know that.
I signed up for it, and it wasn't like, okay, you're going on stage tomorrow. It is like 3 months away from you doing it. So now I have to like shit my pants and sit in it.
Oh yeah,
And I
3 months of preparation.
could have easily went and done like old material, and I know it always works to be fine. But no, you need to prove if you're still funny. So I wrote a whole new act and spiel. But I had 3 months out to do it, and in that similar time frame, I had started or found the interest to want to start to date again because it had been 2 years since that break, and I hadn't dated anybody. I'm like, I kind of want to touch a woman. I want a woman to touch me again, and you know, healed enough where I'm like, I'm ready, to get back in it. But I was also living with my parents, which is not an easy thing to say at 35 years old.
We could definitely talk about that because it's like, when we do go through a breakup or something serious, like we had to change like our whole life and we have to reframe that. I've changed my life. I've reset as well too. But I think on a path of growth, where the trajectory is, it's like for anybody that's listening out there that's single, divorced, or whatever, like in the dating too. I'm in it too. It's like
Right.
I don't have my own place as well too, but it's like we're on a path to something, which makes me. I think there's women out there that like that.
Right.
At least you're not doing nothing.
Right. So anyway, I started going like on some dates or even having the conversation, like talking about my roommates. It was just like you could feel like, oh man, who's this loser? But
Yeah,
I went on this date with somebody that I liked enough, but I could sense like my present housing situation was an issue as it should be. And I kind of just sit back. Just kind of had this aha moment of what the fuck are you doing? You allowed yourself to be comfortable. You've been living with mom and dad for 2 years when previously you went from owning a house, being on your own at 17 to moving back home at 35. Yeah, it was necessary in the beginning, but I could have gotten out a lot sooner
yeah,
had I learned some things in a quicker way. So I'm like, I got to shake this up. And what I did is I created a literal fear list. And I'm not talking like touch a spider. I'm talking like deep rooted, emotionally based fears and insecurities. And I put a lot of thought into it. Like
yeah,
things that downright scared the shit out of me to things that just made me a little bit uncomfortable. Like an example, like of a low rider was like talking to a stranger in public, just initiating a conversation, like in a grocery store setting.
yeah,
It was uncomfortable to me back then. I don't know why, but it was. And then the higher end of I got real. It was like, I put on like I was in a career transition and I put it in my head, like, I wanted to get a job in medical sales, and I had no business or background to be in there, but I determined, like, my significance in time is saying, "Oh, this is gonna give me the income that I want, it's gonna give me the significance of this stature." That's
Yeah.
where I was at the time, so it was like that, doing stand-up. I had, like, a very
Guys, thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. My name is Sam Nang, and I just wanted to take a moment and thank you guys for listening to the Flow In, Flow Out podcast. It's been great to have your support, and I want to tell you a little bit more how you can support the community and how we can support you as well too. So, if you like the Flow In, Flow Out podcast, the message that we're putting out, the information, the content, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel on Spotify. Please like it. Please share it. Please share an inspiring message. It helps with the algorithm. It helps get the message out to people that need it. So that would be greatly appreciated. Now, if you are in need of more personal development support in those areas of physical fitness, nutrition, mindset, spirituality, anything in that type of area, please book a discovery call with us. We'd love to help you. We'll get some time on the schedule to chat about what your struggles are, how we can help you, and we'd love to support you in that way. And if you are interested in being a part of being a guest on the podcast, please let me know. If you have an inspiring story, you have something that you want to share, if you have a message that resonates that's similar to what we're sharing here on the Flow In, Flow Out podcast, we welcome you to be part of our show. We're super excited where the growth and the community is growing. So we look forward to having you here, and we look forward to working with you. And thank you guys so much for the continued support and the love. And we'll continue to keep putting out the good vibrations out there to help elevate the collective vibrations. And thank you guys so much.
uncomfortable conversation with my father of just talking about feelings and emotion, just in hopes of having a better relationship with him. It was all around dating, and it was a lot. I can't remember everything. Those were like the main big ones on my list. And what I did was I just aggressively attacked that list. Now, let me ask you this. Think about the time that you overcame a fear. How did you feel in the moment when you did that?
You feel very accomplished, proud of yourself, but it's one of those things that's like only you could feel it, you know?
Oh, yeah, it's like you just like slayed a dragon.
Yeah,
It's fucking an incredible
it's a good
feeling.
feeling. It
Yeah,
can be kind of addicting, but I think for me, as I've been goal setting and doing personal development, the goals and things that I want to achieve, they just take a little bit longer time, versus
right,
uh, build a profitable, sustainable coaching business takes a
right,
lot of time, right? You know, a great marriage or a great relationship or family, it takes time too. So I understand that,
right,
but those are all things that I do want to achieve, but in the process, that's where this I think the struggle
right,
is. It's like we want something to happen so quick, right? If you
right,
done some personal development work or manifested something or try to manifest something, there's always like this delayed period, and that delayed period is where it becomes, I think uncomfortable, or where you
right.
need support,
But
or that's where the grind is.
but that delay is so important
Yeah,
because, well, one, either two things happen. Because of the delay, you tell yourself it's not gonna work and get in your own fucking head and you tap
yeah,
out and walk away from it. Or you achieve it and you keep grinding and get it, and when you achieve it, it means that much fucking more to you because
it does.
of the delay.
Yeah, that's why I like goals that take a fair amount of time to achieve. But
Right.
even also, you have to give yourself some forgiveness. Like, goals are just goals, it's just something to aim
Oh,
for.
yeah, I mean, you
Yeah,
gotta
lots of
have
people.
yourself grace and compassion and like embrace even the smallest of victories. You're not going to be perfect every single day, but even a small win's still a win. But going
Yeah.
back to that fearless, it was I had crossed every single thing off of there in like a month and a half.
Yeah, really.
And if
You really
and if
attacked
you
it, huh?
and if you well, what I realized what I did was I was basic my intention, I was stacking. And have you ever heard the term like you could habit stack, like that famous speech about making your bed, like
Habit
little micro
stacking,
things. So
compounding. Yeah, I do
exactly.
believe in that. I do. I really like that. Yeah.
So you can stack, habits, you can stack emotions to like meditations and visualizations. I was stacking conquering fear. And if you go to that emotional frequency scale, fear is one of the bottom ones. Right around the middle is what's the first thing you need to overcome a fear?
Is it like gratitude?
Courage.
Courage. Yeah.
Courage is kind of
Oh,
like
yeah.
in the
We were just
middle.
talking. Yeah.
And then when you overcome, we just talked about it. You experience like joy, love, the
Yeah.
higher end
The
ones.
higher
That,
ones.
so I was going fear, courage, joy, fear, courage, love, fear,
Yes.
courage. And I did it so many times in such a short frequency that it bumped me up there and fucking kept me up there.
Yeah.
Where I went from, that's where my self confidence and self love was born. And the results of all those things, I did get that job in medical sales. It was my first six-figure job. Not only was it that, it was a job that I fucking loved.
Yeah.
That I was the least person qualified, but I worked the hardest to do it during the interview process and taking uncomfortable action after comfortable action to achieve it. And I got it. I excelled at it. It changed my trajectory of life immediately. I'll never forget this week. I had the final interview for that job. And then later that night was the night of that stand-up show. And I was still funny, which was such a
You
huge
crushed it.
moment for me just because I needed to prove that to myself.
Yeah.
The next day, I got the job offer. That original girl that I like kind of things dusted off, I had this courageous, like little like say anything moment holding a boombox in the air, like asking her out again. Um, I got a date. I got the girl for a night anyway, but that's okay. I mean,
Your
shortly after
confidence was
that,
running high.
well, it wasn't meant to be. But shortly after that, I did end up in a relationship, and it didn't stand the test of time. But it gave me exactly what I needed in the moment.
Yeah.
And that was for me to know that I was capable of both giving and receiving love. Um, so got the job. Was still funny. Had a better relationship with my father. Immediately, I got that job offer. Got it a place for me and my son. Moved out within a week from my parents' house, and it was just a rise. That was my breakthrough, and I did it by conquering fear.
Yeah.
So that's my big surprise. One of the big cornerstones of my program is that I have people write out everything that they do, and I have them accomplish it in a matter of a month. Now,
Fabulous. Right. Build and
that
develop
that
into.
turns a lot of people away, just the thought of it. And
Yeah, I
you,
think because I've done when I started coaching is it's like personal training. Like people even just fear like looking at their weight scale because they
right,
let it go so far, and it's that initial hurdle when you overcome that fear. And I love how you did it where you talk about you went from fear to this cycle, and you created a pattern, and then it compounded over and over and over,
it
and
changed my
overcoming
entire life.
yeah
Changed my
overcoming that
entire life.
becomes like a repetition, and it almost becomes a cycle and patterns that you redevelop right in a
Right.
positive way and using the tools that you have about creating like a fearless and everything. How do you tie into that method that you have? You call it the slingshot method. Is that like a continuous off of this
Yeah.
fearless?
So it's like it's not one thing. There's so many different
Yeah,
moving pieces
everybody
in this
needs
program.
different type of things.
Right.
Yeah.
And when I started coaching, like I didn't have a program. I didn't think to. Um, and then doing it, yeah, I was effective, but I realized, oh, I could be a lot more effective if I had some structure and some real precise things. So like, my method is like the culmination of the very best that I've learned in
Yeah.
my almost 10 years of this personal development state. It's 2 years of this Tony Robbins coaching program. It incorporates things from just mindset, taking care of your physical body and soul with certain spiritual practices. Now, I don't preach spirituality, but there's certain spiritual practices just flat out work. And if
Yeah,
we
they
get
do.
all three working together in balance and harmony, we can change your life.
Yeah.
So I picked a slingshot just because I use the tagline, if you want to rapidly accelerate your path forward, we start by going backwards. So we go back to the root cause of why you are the way you are. And I'll give you an example. I'll use myself as an example. Like I said, my root cause was low self-worth. Now, why did I experience this, or how did I get that answer? Now, this is not universal, but this will apply for the majority. So you can ask yourself these same questions. And what I have my clients do is write down every single thing you don't like about yourself, any poor memories, poor experiences, write it, get it all out. And then
Yeah.
just simply, what's the first one that you can remember? What was the first one? And that was mine, was low self-worth. And now I relate that to childhood trauma. And when I say childhood trauma, you assume like, oh, you must have had some horrible traumatic childhood. No,
Yeah.
every one of our parents fucks us up in some way, shape, or form.
Unknowingly. I don't
Yeah, they don't have the
this is
best
the
intentions. Like, Mom, Dad, I love you very much. I know you love me unconditionally.
I always thought, when we talk about parents on because I love my parents, I always, like
Right,
have a good relationship, and not everybody has such a great relationship. But even I had to look back, like, okay, my parents weren't completely there, supportive and everything, but they
right,
were limited to what they had at the time. They didn't have, like, my parents. They're foreign. They weren't worried about therapy. They weren't worried about their mental health or whatever. They were just kind of almost like in survival mode for us.
right,
But it's the same too in other situations. Like other parents, they might not have been,
right.
given this type of information or realize it was, and that's why it happens. That's why people talk about in personal development is generational trauma. What you know?
Right. So it's like now I'm just choosing to break this fucking cycle
Yeah, there you go.
and teach different ways. But I simplify childhood trauma, and it's just in my take on it. There's three types. You can submit and become a mirror of those that raised you. Now that could be
Yeah,
positive or negative depending on who that was.
yeah,
You do the polar opposite where you rebel, again, positive or negative. Or option three is you become some fucked up hybrid of both. And that was me. I was option three. On the outside, I was a rebel. On the inside, I was the mirror of my mother with the insecurities and vulnerabilities and shyness and all that stuff. But why? And then it's like, okay, when you look to those that raised you, not all the time, but generally speaking, you have one person's love that you have unconditionally. And that
yeah,
was my mom's. Because I had it and I knew I had it no matter what, I didn't respect it. My dad, on the other hand, I had to work for that. The only time I was shown love was either by achieving something, like either academically or athletically,
yeah,
or falling in line and being obedient. Like I was always different. I always acted differently. I always thought differently, not in a bad way. It was just unique to who I was as an individual. However, I felt I couldn't be that person around him because I was always told not to be. So
yeah,
my low self worth came from trying to earn my father's love because I couldn't
yeah,
be myself around him. Or at least that's what I thought at the time. And I carried that with me my whole fucking life. I think that's part of the reason why I excelled so much when I was working for other people. Part of me was still trying to please that father figure in my
yeah.
life by
That's a
achieving.
really That's a really strong point that you brought up, especially when it comes to parenting, because that is like our subconscious when we're growing up as kids and our brains are really developing and stuff. That's who we're trying to please or trying to serve at the same time.
Right,
And, when you do get raised, like that influence, and there's a lot of talk about inner child healing. And I think inner child healing is just going back and seeing some of the things that you needed to do to parent yourself, right?
right,
And we're currently parenting ourselves right now. The inner child healing, and it's crazy. Is that's a new word for me? Like 3 or 4 years ago, I haven't heard of what inner child healing was, but I've
right,
always meditated and always thought about, like, okay, there's some things that I do because my dad raised me a certain way, and then like Asian culture is that you don't speak back to your parents,
right.
no matter what it is, right?
Oh my! Yeah, my lesson was like, do as I say, not as I do. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I
and I
question
hope people are
everything.
raised like that, and that actually took me when I went into the workplace. Is like no matter like if it was like a supervisor or like a manager, and I knew I was like I don't think that there might be a better way or something, and the direction is, and then I just would just not say anything, just out
Right,
of respect or what I'm conditioned to do is like this person's a supervisor, this person knows more than me, but
right,
I started to learn and started to grow and started to do that healing. I was like, the reason why I don't speak up is because that's how I was raised. Is
right,
like considered rude. It's considered not proper to talk back to your parents. But
right,
I had to reframe it and kind of talk or think through it and like start to do that inner working of like learning how
right.
to express myself and like advocate for myself. So it's always a constant, right?
Right. So
Yeah,
in relation to the program, so it's we get to the root, and then I do something at a one-on-one setting, which is incredibly personal, incredibly vulnerable, but we tap into like a subconscious memory.
yeah.
And I do something, it's like it gets very fucking I cry half the time when I'm doing it for somebody else because of how
Yeah, I
hard
mean,
it is.
you shared with me that audio, that breath work, and breath work really channels that emotion. Do you use like breath work and like exercises
To
in your
to
coaching as well?
get them into it for that specific thing with just a light breathing thing to get them in that calm state.
Yeah,
But then we heal this core wound on the spot, and it's incredibly powerful. But what I've realized, when you heal that major one, all the rest of them you built up start to fall like dominoes. So we kind of like basically tear down all these walls, clearing your path to slingshot forward from this anything that you holding on to. Because if you think about it, if it's not healed, it brings a negative emotion to your present.
hmm,
There's some foundational stuff we touch on with emotions. There's some other things that we cover. I encourage them to achieve happiness, whether it's, and I have them identify all the things that make them happy, the things that they are not doing, but if they did would make them happy, and
yeah,
encourage them to do all that, centering all around emotions. And it's customizable because it's still focusing on the individual's personal goals being applied to all this. So it's like kind of like a foundation part in the beginning, that why they're doing working towards their goals. The next phase is they do their fucking fear list, which I'm glad I'm there for because
that's where
it
you do need
it's
support.
it's so easy, but it's so fucking hard at the same time. Like, any one of you out there listening can do this for free.
Yeah,
Any one of you can do it. Most of you won't. And I wish you would, because it would change your damn life. But, and then it's like kind of a hybrid. Like, we build them a solid foundation with, like, creating a certain routines. You know,
yeah,
when you wake up, start your day off on the right foot with a morning routine centered like mind, body, and soul. Some meditation, a light breath work, some body movement, some gratitude. It's all like it's a specific program, but it's also at the same time like customized and fine tuned to the individual to achieve what they want.
yeah. No, I love it. It's similar to my coaching as well too. I think each individual has their own set of core values and set of beliefs and set of things that they were meant to cultivate, develop.
Right.
When I talk about personal development and I talk a little bit about spirituality as well too, in using like vibration and metaphysics. That's what I've been studying. I've been studying Dr. Joe Dispenza. He actually helped me put a lot of things into like where I could actually explain it. You know, when you go through
Oh,
this transformation
yeah,
practice.
I love that book, Becoming Supernatural,
Yeah,
because
it's a great book.
one, it's so ridiculous the true power of the mind when you can unlock these things, and I love how he backs it all up with a
Yeah,
scientific evidence around it. But
yeah.
there's real life case studies, real life examples. I mean, why do you think the placebo effect is a thing?
Yeah, and that you know that is, I mean, it's faith. At the end of the day, when you call it like spirituality, it's faith that something is going to work out that you might not believe is going to happen almost immediately. But there's ways, there's tools and books and resources I use because I, in my way, in my own personal development, how I became a coach is that I've always practiced this self stuff on myself first, so I can know how it feels and how to be able to explain it intuitively as well too.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like my program, I'm the original guinea pig.
You're the guinea
Like,
pig.
gonna
Yeah,
have I'm not gonna have
and I think
anybody do
the thing
something
that
that I haven't
experience
done myself.
and what resonates with people is that you done the work yourself too to heal and
Right.
to bring yourself to the space, and still like we're all still continuously doing it, and no matter what, like I always tell people, like whether it be like a personal development, fitness, or anything, there's not an end journey. It's a continuous journey. The more you do it, the more you want to do it, the more you
Oh,
actually have to do it too.
Yeah, it's like when I had some of my certain spiritual experiences that kind of like shook me to my core. I was at a moment in time where I kind of hit a plateau, and very foolishly, I had thought like I have learned all there is to learn. Not in everything, but like in certain specific aspects, like I have reached the mountaintop. And then I
That's
got struck by fucking lightning after I dusted myself off and I looked up. I'm like, oh, this climb is infinite.
it is. I think I came to that realization too, and it's always like when you realize you think you made it, you think, and then life will hit you and be like, no, you haven't,
Right,
because there's always like a never ending process, and there's other people as well too, because I think in spirituality we have to understand who we are in the
right.
universe of like how we relate to other people, how we interact with other people, because
Oh,
that's our
sure. And
relationship so important.
and we're talking. I mean, I'm 10 years in. I don't know how many years into this lifestyle you are, but it's a lifestyle choice. And these are nothing more than learned skills. I think it's the hardest for anybody in the very beginning because you're starting at square one, and then
There's
people can
nothing there
start
in
to
the beginning. There's
people can
nothing there
start
in the
to,
beginning, yeah, and then you need support. Well, or you seek mentors,
well,
you seek guidance and stuff to get
right.
inspiration.
Well, it's just a sense of overwhelm because I have so many different things I have to do. It's like you don't know where to start, and then it keeps people from even beginning of just getting past that doubt. But there was, I'll share this because I know we're wrapping up on our time. There's a great book that I read, and it's called The One Thing by Gary
Gary
Keller.
Keller. Yeah,
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah. but
but that question that they ask is so fucking powerful,
yeah.
and
It's just the
it's
one question that you ask is like,
yes. And this is for any of you out there that don't know where to go, you're feeling stuck and don't know where to start. This is the question to ask yourself. What is the one thing that I can do that if by doing that thing, everything else either becomes easier or unnecessary?
yeah, I
That's
like
it.
it.
And that
Good.
one thing you can apply to every aspect of your life: career, family, relationships. You can have ask that same question in several different aspects of your life.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, that one thing, 99% of the time, is that uncomfortable thing. It's the hard thing that we don't want to do.
It's always the thing that we avoid that gives
Right.
us the biggest return on investment. And I love that. I don't get this point across, and then we could wrap up the show. You shared a lot of insight of how you coach and how you got to your journey, and we appreciate the vulnerability and the honesty. And that was kind of the reason why I brought you on to share the experience and how you coach as well too.
Yeah, I
But
appreciate it.
but focus. I mean, like you kind of like triaging yourself. I, as a coach too, when it came into like physical fitness, is always really focused on that one big thing that will make the most drastic impact on your life. And for me and for you, understanding like personal development is understanding the subconscious, that brain, that thing that really wires your programming and how you interact day to day, right? Because ups and downs as you go through life, it's going to be ups and downs, ups and downs. You're going to learn, you're going to grow, you're going to be successful, you're going to be happy, you're going to be in certain situations. But how do you navigate this? By training your mind and using the subconscious and like personal development. When I started getting into like Tony Robbins and all that, it was so addicting for me that I just continued. And it has helped me through some very hard times. And it
Right.
also has helped me through some very, very good times. So definitely anybody that listening to this
Oh, shit.
podcast is
And it's
definitely encouraged.
and it is
to-
addicting because and it's like it's so impactful on me personally because like I'm on both sides of it. I lived a lifetime in a shit like just in the worst case scenario. And looking back at it now, it's like 95% of those wounds were all self-inflicted. I just didn't know how to change it at the time.
Yeah.
But now that I'm on the other side of it and see how life can be, living with purpose, just being fucking happy every day. Like I can walk outside, my outside world could be burning the fuck down. And I can walk out there with a smile on my face with the understanding there's a purpose for this.
Yeah.
Even this will pass, and it's going to make the brighter day even brighter.
Yeah.
There's a purpose for all of it, the high times and the low times. If
Yeah.
things were good all the time, it'd be boring and we wouldn't appreciate it.
Yeah.
So we have to those downtimes in life, there are opportunities. They are growth opportunities if we allow it. But
Hmm.
you got to learn the lessons and take the uncomfortable action to move forward.
Yeah.
And telling yourself you can't, you're right. If you think that way, you've lost before you even started.
Yeah.
But it is possible. I'm living proof of it. You're living proof of it.
Yeah.
It's
It's very powerful how when you start to understand the science behind it and the belief, and it doesn't matter, we talk about the placebo effect, like faith, spirituality, and stuff.
right.
It's like when you do develop yourself, you don't know exactly what's gonna happen, right? But almost be detached from the result, and then it's going to happen, right? It's a beautiful process. It's also an ugly process too. I like to be honest with people. It's like the process of
Oh,
transformation. It's
yeah,
ugly,
especially when you
painful.
get to the shadow work.
Yeah,
I'm
the
glad
shadow
that you
work.
mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a couple of different type of personal development work. There's like
Right.
goal setting, personal development, there's shadow work, there's therapy, then there's also spiritual work too. So for me, it's like it's the more I do it, the more I have to do. I don't know how to explain it.
Oh, yeah, and I'll say this, for anybody that's unfamiliar with shadow work, if you are just starting your growth journey, don't start there. That
Yeah, do
can
some
bur
positive shit first.
yeah,
Rebuild
that
yourself up
that
because shadow work is going into like the parts that you don't like about yourself.
oh, shadow work is so fucking hard. You gotta make peace with all of your demons, but it's duality. We all have the devil, and we all have God on each one of our shoulders. We have good and evil in each and every one of us, and
Yeah,
shadow work is kind of like making peace with your demons and accepting, yeah, I'm great, I'm loving, I'm giving. That's me. But I am also this other
yeah,
demon that nobody wants to talk about. But it's making peace with that. But you can't have one without the other. It's that duality. And
yeah,
it's
man.
in every aspect of life.
For sure, for sure. Thank you for sharing your insight. You have a lot of experience and wisdom, and um, you know, part of the Flow In, Flow Out podcast is to share and collect the vibrations and the consciousness and the knowledge and the insight for other people as well too that are going through personal struggle. And everybody has a journey, everybody has a story, and I love hearing people's story and love how we redevelop it. We can always redevelop the story.
Right.
Anytime people come on a podcast, I want them to be empowered, to be honest and vulnerable, and share what they are experiencing. Because that also too, for me, like podcasting is a healing process because I could express myself. You could express yourself.
Right.
Generally, I love having people, share their experience because it is a healing process, not only for me, it's for the other person as well too.
No, you're doing a great thing. I listened to one of yours the other day, and then it's like I was looking through the list, and you have such a wide variety of content and speakers out. But it's fucking awesome because it's not one thing; it's so
Yeah.
many different things. If you can incorporate and blend all these things into your life in like some way, shape, or form, it's not making like one thing dominant. It's kind of finding balance and harmony between
Yeah.
all of
I think one thing that I found success is like in personal identity work is like, okay, yeah, I work with a lot of people and, interact with a lot of people, but how do I bring my authentic self there? I always have to look at myself that like, like today I have a mustache. Sometimes
them.
I have a
Right.
beard. Sometimes I wear different clothes and stuff. I had to think about like there, if I'm with somebody, I'm, like a chameleon, like my
Right.
color is changing it up, but at the core to myself, right? When we do identity work and personal development, you know who you are, you know what your value
Oh,
is,
yeah. It's identity shifting is like, kind of like taking on the persona before you achieve it.
yeah,
But it's
that's just
also like I have a very simple question and it's a very hard answer for most people, which is what is your identity? Who are you? And it's like
yeah,
what you're not, it's not tied to your career. It's not tied to being a parent. It's like who are you at a soul level? And
yeah,
I noticed this I'm in a relationship now, I'm very happy, but in the dating world, I would notice this just going on dates, like, oh, I was in a marriage for 10 plus years. My identity was being a parent. My identity was around the children. My identity was this relationship. And then this ends, and now they got to stand on their own. They don't even
yeah,
know who the fuck they are anymore. And this holds true for so many of us. We just lose sight of who we are. And it ties into your inner child. Like, who are you before the world broke you? Before you had a care of the world? Who was that person? How
yeah,
do we bring that person out today? If he's there on your side, he, she is there on your side.
yeah, Yeah.
Yeah, it's all there. We just life happens and the inner child kind of fades away. But if you can bring that to life and live with enthusiasm and joy in your everyday life, the things that you're chasing for, they're gonna come a lot easier. It's kind
Yeah.
of like, are you like more likely to achieve something if you're in a happy, energetic mood, or are you kind of or angry and pissed off, or depressed or sad? Bump yourself up, and there's so many different ways to achieve it. But if you're operating from a higher, elevated emotional state, everything, everything is gonna come so much easier.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Thank you. That was a powerful story of transformation, and definitely encourage everybody to start doing that type of work, even no matter how hard it is, right? As long as you get at it and continuously do it and stuff. But
No, and for anybody that's starting, just remember this: it's hold compassion for yourself.
yeah,
You're learning, these are skills, and it's a lifestyle choice. And it's a choice. You can choose to live this way, and you're not going to have perfect days. You have a to-do list of 10 things and you do 9 of them and don't get to one. You're going to focus on the thing that didn't go right or the 9 things that went well. It's just 1 inch at a time, 1 day at a time. And progress is hard to measure when it's happening 1 inch, 1 day at a time.
yeah,
But 6 months, a year from now, 10 years from now, you're going to look back and just see just how far you came if you stay the course.
yeah.
But it's there's so much content out there. There's so many smart people. So are you going on social media or YouTube and listening to those people? Or are you checking out somebody with a nice ass on Instagram?
Once in a while, we gotta check out the nice ass and
Yeah,
stuff.
I
And
mean, it's
then,
part
and
of the
then,
process.
then you go back to do the personal development work and everything.
But yeah, but I'm saying it's the information, the pieces to the puzzle are all around you.
Yeah, they're
But
there.
it's
And
kind of
that
like,
that holds true, man. It's like limiting beliefs of like, hey, I want to improve. It's right there, right? There's a YouTube channel, there's a podcast to listen to, there's a book that you could read almost within reach, and removing those blocks and limiting, things. One of the things that like we're always continuing the conversation, but it's like it takes about like 60 to 80 times for somebody to hear something good to actually take action on it. And for me, it's like I'm dedicated. Like I love this. I'm extremely passionate about it. It does like even no matter how hard life gets for me or like how difficult it is, at least I know I'm making an impact with some content that
right,
I'm creating, and that makes me very fulfilled at the core
right.
that I would help people help heal, right? Help understand this. And it's not like you asked the question is like you're not your job, you're not your relationship, you're not this person, but who are you at the end of the day, right? Who you bring to the table every day. It doesn't have to be like almost every day, but like who you bring out every day, that's who what you're creating. And that's what we're doing too, with this conversation.
Yeah, I love talking about this shit, man. I could talk about this stuff for hours.
All right, let's get one more final statement message that you want to get across. If there's anything out there that you are looking to manifest or want to manifest or happen in your life, please tell us a little bit about it and stuff.
I'm doing it, man.
Yeah,
I'm living my life with purpose, and it's like I finally took my mask off that I've wore my entire life, and now it's my authentic self that I'm putting out there. And it's like I've done this coaching, but like kind of in the shadows for the past 2 years. Now it's my I'm taking that uncomfortable action of building a business out of it, and that requires getting on social media, which I never used, learning
yeah,
marketing and messaging, and but I'm living it. It's This was something that I had to do. In fact, it was like there were several reasons why I got into it, but it kind of like I had one of those aha moments where somebody called me out. I was working with somebody, and they called me selfish. And it's like you have so much knowledge. If you don't start sharing this with
yeah.
people, you're selfish. And
I've
I
heard
had
somebody say that too. It is like a selfish thing that you have all this experience,
right,
all this wisdom that when you don't tell your story, it's like you're not helping anyway.
right. It's like I'm in this position now only because I did this on myself. In fact, I titled my company, It Starts with Self. If you want more, better career, more money, better relationships, it doesn't come from externally, it comes from within. Like, learn to make yourself whole, and then the rest is going to fall into place. but I'm living it. And it's one of those things, and I'll just close with the idea of like hopes and dreams. And we all have those hopes, dreams, and ideas.
Right.
And in the beginning, when we keep them in front of us, we daydream about it. It makes us feel good. One day, one day, and it gives us hope of a better future, a better tomorrow. But a long enough timeline with inaction of not doing it or achieving it or even starting, over time, those hopes and dreams, they start to fester
They
and
become
rot.
demons.
And
They
that
become like
same
demons.
that
Yeah.
same idea that you thought that gave you inspiration and hope and dreams, now you look back at it with shame and regret and
Right.
anger and guilt. I can't remember the exact quote, but I think they did a poll with hospice workers, and it was like the number one regret. And it was all the things that they didn't do, all
Mhm.
those hopes, dreams that they didn't bring to life.
Yeah. 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 Powerful message, man. I'm gonna wrap up the show with the last message and everything. I think not feeling of regret is something that is powerful to help people
Right.
just get started. I don't even, it doesn't have to be content creation. It could be something so simple as like
Oh,
coaching somebody else, you know?
it could be anything, whatever's specific to you as the individual. You, the individual watching this, first of all, you're awesome for taking the time to educate yourself about a different way of thinking. You are more powerful than you could possibly imagine, and you can do all these things. You can bring those hopes and dreams and ideas to life, I promise you.
Yeah.
The first step is believing that you can. No, he who says he can and he who says he can are both usually right.
Yeah.
Believe that you can.
Are
Don't
you,
see.
are you a preacher or do you give back in the community as well too? I've seen some, you've done some speaking, right?
Yeah, I've done some speaking gigs. That's I don't have. I'm not a preacher
Yeah.
in that
No,
sense.
it just as a give an example is like it could be anything in your community, right? I
No,
think
I've had some speaking things come up, which I enjoy doing. It's like I'm recording this content now that I'm putting up creating my own content, and I'm just so much more comfortable in front of a live audience, or even just this talking with somebody
yeah.
else than I am alone in front of my computer by myself. But I'm always looking for new opportunities to give back and be of service. So I'm exploring different options now of areas where I can volunteer and share more of these messages and give these presentations and talks to people that need to hear it.
Yeah. I mean, podcasting and speaking is a great thing to, contribution is that fulfillment that where we're both in and sharing knowledge and wisdom and insight and everything. You know, and getting rid of that feeling of regret or like what is it? And feeling like rejection and all of that. Those are all inner work that you overcome. And then when you do share your message, you make an impact on people. And for me, it's like sharing the message is that I'm always going to continue. I said, no matter what, if it's, I just started the business as well too, and been learning a lot and growing in my own stuff and just learning about business as well too. So it's been a great process and it's
Yeah.
always a continuous
And
process.
it's a great service that you're offering. It's I thank you for having me on. Thank you
Yeah.
for doing what you're doing. Like you're putting yourself out there too. You're forming those connections in the same way through authenticity and vulnerability. I watched like a story of yours the other day where you said, I had a bad day, and that's so fucking important to share. I mean, I'm not perfect. Nobody is. Like I have days where I get in my own head and like doubt creeps in.
Yeah.
And like, is this stupid? Is this worthwhile? One of the favorite lines an old mentor shared with me was, doubt your doubts.
Doubt your doubts. I like that. That's like a very philosophical thought right there.
Right?
I'm gonna meditate on that. All right. We
Or,
could talk for days about this personal development. We'll definitely have to have you back on and continue to see your growth and everything. I'm excited.
yeah,
Keep
I
doing what
love
you're
that.
doing, Nick, man. And I appreciate you having or coming on to the podcast as well too. And I love doing this, and I'm gonna keep doing it. And I appreciate you watching and supporting the community. And we'll get this out to both our communities, and hopefully it sheds some light and shares some insight for people that you can make an impact on, right?
Yeah, I mean, likewise,
Yeah.
keep doing what you're doing. You're bringing
Yeah.
value to the world. You have geniuses on
Yeah.
to educate these young minds.
I was Eric is maybe we could continue this conversation over like a genius mindset is somebody that's going to help shift a paradigm, right? this is a paradigm shift that we're changing, reprogramming things that are hard, that are going to go against the grain too. But
Oh, yeah. And
yeah,
for anybody out there that's thinking big, thinking like change the world big, just remember this. They're going to call you crazy before they call you a genius.
yeah, it starts with you, right? Before you can do anything, it just starts with you. And
Starts with
that
self.
yes, we could think big. Like I always think big too. I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna be this big influencer or whatever. But it had to come down and start with yourself every day.
Humble beginnings, but stay on the path and you'll get there.
All
You got to
right,
believe
man.
that you can.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. Good
Yeah.
luck and
Thank you
everything.
very much. Thanks, everybody. It was fun.